the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Good morning. The missing freedoms in the Arab world. That's what we will be talking about this morning. Tunisia was voted by Reporters Without Borders as the top Arab country in freedom of the press. Internationally, Tunisia is ranked 96, jumping ahead of 30 countries from where it was a year ago. Tunisia's achievement is challenged by the social and financial conditions of many Tunisian journalists who finally went on a strike to demand better salaries. In Egypt, journalists face a different kind of challenge. The press union or press syndicate is filing a complaint with the Prosecutor General against the Ministry of Interior for raiding its headquarters in Cairo to arrest 2 journalists. But there are more challenges facing Arab media and press. Look at the war in Syria. The war in Syria is providing fodder for biased reporting. So the facts of the war, of the fighting, of the situation, those facts are presented in different ways depending on who you are talking to. We will be discussing how free Arab press is, and later in the program we will ask questions about the recent Syria massacres and what may come next. With us to discuss those issues, Mr. Ziad Al-Kilani, teaching assistant at the School of Economics and Political Science, Cairo University. Dr. Sufyan Maluli, assistant professor at the University of Sfax, Tunisia. Mr. مراد التائب, journalist and BBC Arabic stringer in Tunisia. And later we'll be joined by Mr. Adib Shweki, co-founder of the Rahma Relief Foundation. I guess my first question will go to all of my distinguished guests, and that is, we need to get your assessment in general, the status of the freedom of press in the Arab country in general, the Arab world in general. And let's start with Mr. Murad al-Tayyib in Tunisia.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, my name is مراد التائب, and I've been a reporter and correspondent for BBC World Service, not Arabic, for many years.
My apology. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. The issue of freedom of expression in Tunisia is very complex to my mind. First, I do not totally agree with this ranking by Reporters Without Borders. I really do not agree, for many reasons.
Hello?
Expression under the former regime. Many journalists tried to work and to survive in Tunisia, inside Tunisia, as much as possible and with the minimum of the risks. I was one of them. I worked in Tunisia, and believe me, we could do a lot, and we could speak a lot, we could write a lot, even under a dictator. That's one thing. After 2011, after the popular uprising and the revolution, the Tunisian revolution of January 2011, and until now, in fact, the flux of freedoms has become very high. Now everybody can say anything. Of course, it's less and less obvious, but compared to the old regime, we can say whatever we like, whenever we like, about any politician or any other person. But for me, that's not the issue. That's not the problem. For me, I have always said, I have always written that the biggest problem in the Tunisian media are two things. First, those who control the Tunisian media, especially TV networks and newspapers, are the same people and the same investors and the same businessmen who worked under Ben Ali. I mean the same businesses and the same journalists and the same media owners, those corrupt media owners that made a fortune under Ben Ali and still control about 90% of the media landscape in Tunisia. That's one thing. The second thing is, for me, the degree of professionalism of the Tunisian journalists themselves. I mean that we did not, despite all these newfound freedoms since 2011, I don't see the Tunisian professional journalistic product has improved. On the contrary, in many cases it is today worse than before 2011. Now journalists are totally, or in a big part, very, very unbiased.
Mr. مراد, I will get back to discuss the situation in Tunisia in details, but I just wanted to get an overview of the status of the freedom of press in the Arab world in general, and then we will discuss the specifics of each country in a minute. I want to turn to Mr. Ziad Al-Kilani in Cairo, and the question, Mr. Kilani, is the same. To start with, I need to get an overview, your assessment of the status of the freedom of press in not just in Egypt but in general in the Arab world.
Okay. Greetings from sunny Cairo, Dr. Atif. Let me extend my appreciation as well for Laila Husseini. It's always good to be here with you. I would say that yes, the media and journalism in general is facing some challenges in the Middle East after the 2011, but I would say the margin of maneuver and the margin of freedom is actually increasing, and it's increasing by the sacrifices that have been exerted by journalists and media people. Another thing, it actually speaks to Mr. Murad's observation that I don't trust really the ratings in general. These kinds of ratings are dominated by Eurocentric sort of vision. So I think the region, the Middle East, I would say, our part of the world, has its own cultural specificity. So we don't need to fill in this kind of trap, assessing our status of freedom of expression in the region. Another thing, which is an observation of mine, is that journalists and media people are actually more invested in the public affairs now, more than ever, and their role had changed basically, turning into political activism and political sort of, and they are like leading the public opinion in the respective countries. And this is a dramatic change, and we need to study that and to explain that in due course. Yeah, that's my basic understanding.
Before I turn back to Mr. Murad, I just would like to ask our audience that they are free, they are welcome to contact or call us with questions or comments. The number to call is 248-557-3300. That's 248-557-3300. Mr. Murad, back to you now. So you said that you disagree with the findings of the group Reporters Without Borders, and the group simply says that Tunisia is the best in the Arab world. Now, why do you disagree with that specific finding?
The fact that we can say whatever we want in the newspaper or on TV, or we can insult anybody, we can say all the lies and exaggerations and rumors live, does not mean we are free. Freedom is responsibility. And today, the media landscape in Tunisia is total chaos for me. That's not freedom. There's difference between freedom and chaos. Today, what we see is everybody insulting everybody accusing everybody. Every journalist is linked to a political party or to a business or to a businessman, getting paid by politicians or by businessmen. Since working conditions of Tunisian journalists is still very mediocre, very bad. Tunisian journalists in average are paid $200 to $150 a month. Do you think they can live on that? Of course, they will go to politicians to pay them. They will go to footballers to pay them. They will go to singers to pay them. They will go to businessmen to pay them. And what we see today is this chaos. Number two, who knows who owns this TV network or the other one? Who knows the ownership behind a newspaper or another newspaper? Nobody knows. Although the law obliges people to declare who finances them, who supports them, nobody does that. So it's total disorder, total chaos. Today, those who say they defend freedom of expression or journalists, like the Journalists Union, the Tunisian Journalists Union, or Reporters Without Borders, who have an office in Tunis, have they ever, since 2011, solved a problem, a financial problem, or a working condition problem for one single journalist? No, nobody has helped journalists improve their working conditions. It's only slogans. Everybody is saying we are defending freedom of expression. How is that? If we see every day and we read every day tens and hundreds of lies, of defamation articles, of copy and paste from Facebook. We see this every day. There's something important to me. The real thermometer of the performance of Tunisian media is social media. Today, Tunisians are turning to social media to get the news. This is a fact, this is a reality, and many surveys have shown that people, Tunisians, go to Facebook to have their daily news and to share their thoughts and to interact with politicians. So that's in a way they do not believe in mainstream media. And everybody knows that the couple of TV channels and a handful of newspapers are very, very, very corrupt today in Tunisia. And nobody who respects himself, nobody who respects journalism can believe that this is freedom of expression. I'm sorry to say that.
Okay. Murad, please stay with us. We'll be back after the break.
Life for Relief and Development is a nonprofit charity that has been providing humanitarian aid and development to people and communities regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background for over 22 years. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life rushes to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Life also has development projects that provide medical relief, water purification, educational programs, relief for orphans, and much more. Your help and support can greatly improve these efforts. All donations are tax deductible. For more information, please visit our website at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's lifeusa.org, 248-424-7493.
Syed brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Syed Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.syed.com. That's www.syed.com. Syed, quality products from our family to yours.
Jumana Keyrus. You've seen her images on giant billboards across the metro. Jumana Keyrus. You've seen her images on buses across the city. Now get to know Jumana Keyrus.
It's sad, but it seems like we live in an age where most lawyers are focused on the bottom line, the money. And a lot of people have stopped wanting to truly advocate. I'll never forget this case. This woman chose me as a lawyer of last resort. She was hit by a semi truck. I was able to recover about $480,000. Not every lawyer is an advocate, but every lawyer should be an advocate.
Let Jumana Keyrus protect your rights. Call the law offices of Jumana Keyrus at 1-866-YOUR-RIGHTS, extension 100, or visit yourrights.com.
Nidal's Pharmacy is a place to go for all of your prescription needs. All insurance plans are accepted at Nidal's Pharmacy. Prescription delivery is available. Nidal's Pharmacy is located at 23,800 Orchard Lake Road, Suite 102 in Farmington Hills. Call 248-477-2131. Nidal's Pharmacy, 248-477-2131.
Abdel-Jawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. We are talking about the missing press freedom in the Arab world, and we are joined now by Dr. Sufyan Maluli, assistant professor at the University of Sfax, Tunisia. Mr. Melulli, the group Reporters Without Border is selecting Tunisia as the top free Arab country in terms of press and media. Do you agree?
Hello, from Tunisia, specifically from Sfax. Well, I can't agree more because I think because of the situation, the political situation in Tunisia, things are really progressing in terms of press freedom. And nobody would deny the fact that we cannot have press freedom without a democratically elected political elite that guarantees, apart from the constitution and the institutions of the state, they guarantee the freedom of the press. So what Reporters Without Borders expressed, they just expressed what is now the case in Tunisia. And the thing here I want to add is for people who are listening to us, as much as for the Tunisians, is that the fact that Tunisia now holds this position is not a final step. Freedom is always negotiated. Freedom has always to be negotiated between the business elite, the politicians, as much as the journalists.
I want to give Mr. Murad a chance to respond to you because he obviously kind of disagrees, but I want to turn, Mr. Murad, you think about your response in a minute, but let me first go to Mr. Al-Kilani, Ziad Al-Kilani in Cairo. Mr. Kilani, we understand that the police raided the press union to get 2 journalists arrested. What is the latest on that right now?
Okay. Well, I think the coverage of the whole issue with the journalist syndicate in Egypt is sort of convoluted somehow. Well, both of these journalists, actually, like, let me specify more. One of them is a journalist, and another is actually an intern, so he's not a journalist. The Ministry of Interior, I think, did a political mistake raiding the journalist syndicate in the middle of downtown Cairo. But legally speaking, when you talk legally speaking, I talked to many legal experts, it's a legitimate cause somehow. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. According to legal experts, the journalist syndicate, like arresting people from anywhere in all over Egypt, is not a violation of the constitution. Why this situation escalated in Cairo with the press syndicate? It has to do with the upcoming election. So the current press syndicate board is actually be elected next November. So they are trying to mobilize and capitalize on the political move from the Ministry of Interior to keep their stakes in hold or to keep their popularity. Another important thing to see regarding this event is actually speaks as well to the situation in Tunisia, and I agree more with Mr. Murad that most journalists actually get news from the social media. And the social media, back on the 25th of April, we had this call to protest against the sea border treaty with Saudi Arabia and giving up the 2 uninhabited islands to Saudi Arabia. On the 24th, and before the actual demonstrations, people were calling that the Sisi regime is falling apart and Egypt will see another sort of revolution. But on the day itself, on the day of the protest, there was nothing in the street. So I think the social media is detached from reality. They still, those people who actually lead public opinion in social media are still living in the romance moment of the 25th of January. Another thing is...
go ahead.
Another thing is, and this is very important, like, to talk about structurally speaking, the members of the press syndicate in Egypt are 8,154 members. Those who showed up on the call to protest against the Minister of Interior was only 700 people. And I've been doing research and calling different people over the past couple of days to make sure that these numbers are true. And the reason for that, why only 700 people showed up, it speaks also to the situation in Tunisia. Journalists in Egypt, they get a very small amount of salaries. And I would say like less than the Tunisian case, less than $150. And in order for them to keep their economic interest in display, they have sort of to co-opt their stances with the state, with the Egyptian state. Because the Egyptian state actually subsidizes most of the journalists' social safety networks in terms of healthcare, in terms of transportation and everything. So I don't think that the recent developments in Cairo and the raid against the press syndicate is actually I would say it's not as it's portrayed in the Western media. And one final observation is the popular reaction. Public opinion reaction is very interesting to see, because as in Tunisia, as any place in the Arab world, the journalists and the media people are connected to businessmen. In Egypt, we have more than 96 political parties. We have more than 400 private TV satellite stations, and all of them are financed by businessmen. So those businessmen have different political interests to keep, and they use journalists to keep their interests. And when you use the international organizations and the international media to express your opinion and say that Egypt is not free and so on, this backfires on journalists themselves. I would say that the move by the journalist syndicate to demand the president for public apology and the welcome for the statements by the Secretary General of the UN and other international organizations actually backfired on them, publicly speaking. Now Egyptians are saying we don't trust them anymore. They use international players to play against our state, and they have economic interest vested in what they are doing.
Okay, Mr. Murad, now you have the chance to respond to both Mr. Meluli and Mr. El-Kilani.
Look, I agree with what Mr. Meluli has said. That's politically, of course, that's how things go. We are still democracy. We are still young democracy, so a lot has to be done. And freedom is not only a practice; it's also legislation and regulation and parliament and so on. It's a lot of things, but that's one side of the story. I will hint to something to respond to my colleague, to my friend in Egypt. I was in. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was in Brussels for a media conference in July 2013, the days when Morsi and his regime were ousted from power. And there were Egyptian journalists with us. And some of them were members of the Egyptian Journalist Syndicate. And on the 3rd of July, we were having a visit of Brussels, and some of our Egyptian colleagues were shouting and dancing with joy in front of everybody in the street when they learned that Sisi and his army have overthrown and regardless of what we think, what we judge, how we judge Morsi and Sisi, that's another story. Everybody has his own point of view. Regardless of that, I don't see it very respectful, very honorable for a journalist to dance and shout when an army general takes power by force. What these journalists will say when the police invaded the offices of the Egyptian Journalists Association. For me, respect is very, very important before talking about politicians or politics or the relationship with politicians. For me, if we master the basics of journalism, good writing, ethics, verified sources, and so on, if we are strong enough, if we are well paid, if we have good working conditions, if we have a strong journalists union, we can criticize any politician. And believe me, before 2011, my boss was Ben Ali's son-in-law. And believe me, I've written, it was a newspaper, and I have criticized, I have done investigations, and I've done serious job. And it caused me some problems, but Nobody told me not to write or to write this way or the other way. Nobody could give me orders, even under Ben Ali. It's not because I'm a Superman, but because I respected the ethics and the basics of journalism. Today,
okay, please stay with us. We'll be back after the break.
From inside.
From their first words to first grade, Dreamy Children's Center will help get your child on the right track. The highly qualified staff works closely with parents to provide an experience that goes beyond early education. We can help nurture important personality traits with the use of programs ranging from preschooling for infants to Montessori-approved programs and bilingual curriculums for young children. All meals can be provided and we can arrange for after-school pickup. Dreamy Children's Center in Dearborn Heights on Warren, in Westland on Ann Arbor Trail, and in Troy on DeQuinder.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Najee Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Najee Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design. New location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Najee Abood, 734-744-9796. When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
I am Atif Abdel Jawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. We are talking about the missing freedoms in the Arab world, and we have a caller on the line. Please introduce yourself and go ahead, sir.
Yes, good morning. Adib Shweki, co-founder of Rahma Relief Foundation.
Yes. Let me ask you about, first, because we are discussing the freedom of the press, and before we get to the specific situation in Syria, I want to ask you about the discrepancies in reporting on the war in Syria. You get some conflicting points of views and events and explanations of what's happening in Syria. Depending on whom you are talking with, you get a different story. Why is that?
Mm-hmm. Well, to be honest with you, I mean, my job as a humanitarian aid worker, all what we see in Syria, it's basically innocent people being caught under the fire, and women, kids, and children being basically hurt. And like yesterday, we had some missiles actually came on one of the refugee camp. So we all aware how all the uprising started. He was just basically called for freedom originally, and he was faced by real bullets by the regime, and it escalates since the last 4.5 years. Of course, we know we have a lot of players nowadays, but meanwhile, the civilians are caught under the fire, and all what we do is care about how we can help these people. And we all saw the recent escalation in Aleppo and how many more civilians got caught in the fire in the last few days. So again, it depends who you talk to, but the real thing, we all aware that the revolution or the uprising started basically as a peaceful call for freedom, and it was forced to defend itself because of the reaction of the regime. So regardless of who you talk to, there are people caught in the, in the middle of it, and that's what we're trying to help.
Let me go back for a second. We have a comment here on Mr. Murad's point of view. Go ahead. Is this Layla Al-Husseini with us?
No, sorry. I'm Sufyan back again.
Right. Go ahead, sir.
Right. So I just want to comment on Murad's talk about the fact that it's through the ethics and through good journalism and through good technicalities of journalism that journalists in general can get grasp of their freedom. I think the debate here is going to be changed. Now, in the past, people used to say that what is important is we get out of the political pressure as far as journalism is concerned, right? I think now the debate, there are two important issues that have to be raised rather than talking about the ethics and journalism that I honestly believe in. But and this is the real debate and the real question, how long would journalism, at least all journalism, newspapers, magazines, resist new media with the advent of Facebook, Twitter, Daily Motion, YouTube, and all of that stuff? Can they still resist the pressure or what has come new through the new media? And the second question, I think, the second debate, which is one of the most important thing I believe, is how long would media institutions and media companies would resist the bond and the strong bond between politicians and the business elite? I can say that, yes, we have freedom and all of that stuff, and we can express ourselves, and we can stick to ethics and journalism. Yes, this is good. But would it be politically correct with some of our advertisers and some of our donors and some of our people who give us money, people who give us, as media institution, people who give us money to work and money to live? I think this is these are two important issues, according to myself, that are very important, apart from talking about the ethics of journalism, which is something important. But would these ethics resist the new media temptation? Would they still resist business elite pressure, whereby they would be obliging any media to be politically correct? I think big debate here.
Mr. Kalani in Cairo, would you like to respond to Mr. Murad? He was a minute ago was very critical of some Egyptian reporters dancing on the streets in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not a journalist per se. I'm just an academic, so I can't speak for journalists in Egypt. But I would say, back to the point of socioeconomic status of journalists in Egypt, I think what the reaction, or the integrated reaction why they were dancing on July 3rd and afterwards, I think it had to do with the deprivation that resulted during the Muslim Brotherhood epoch in Egypt. I mean by the economic deprivation. Since businessmen were skeptic of the political at that time, they kind of shortened or decreased their financing to journalists and people working in the executive media. So for them, actually, experiencing a stable state in their perception would directly respond or directly affect their socioeconomic status. That's my explanation for this kind of action.
Mr. Murad.
Yeah. No, I'd like, for me, unacceptable that the journalist cherishes and dances because an army general who is not known for being democratic comes to power. But that's not the issue. I reply to Mr. Meluli in facts. What he has said is very dangerous to me, because it's to talk about ethics and professionalism. The model of media which survived the internet age exists. The Washington Post still exists in paper, in print. The New York Times, Time Magazine, Le Monde, print newspapers are still surviving, yet in the digital age. But that has nothing to do with journalists respecting themselves, respecting their jobs, and respecting their... Today in Tunisia, believe me, and I know what I'm saying, we don't have journalists writing good Arabic. We do not have journalists writing in French. We do not have journalists speaking or writing in English. We do not have financial reporting. We do not have investigative reporting. We have nothing today. Open the newspapers, open the TV network. It's a scandal. It's worse than before 11. Anything, in the 2014 election, is that we are going back little by little to the a certain control contain media in this way, but it's the same as before 2011. So if journalists are not strong professionally, ethically, financially, and legally, they cannot criticize or criticize politicians. They cannot protect themselves from political and business control. So it's very, very important to me. And here, for me, the Tunisian media today needs a reform from the inside, not the outside. All these statistics and rankings and good words, and you have free media, it's okay, it is welcome, but it's not enough. For me, the Tunisian media needs reform from the inside. That's one. And two, we have to emphasize training of journalists. Do you know that legally the law obliges media owners to allocate 20% of their budgets to training of journalists, but nobody is respecting that. Today, if a journalist asks to go for a few-day training or a week training in Tunisia or outside Tunisia, his boss will say no. And nobody can punish the boss. And here I talk to international organizations and international audience, those tens or hundreds of organizations who give training to journalists or who write surveys about the state of the media or who write reports about the state of the media, for me should be very, very careful, because the hundreds of training courses given to Tunisian journalists since 2011 have given no result for me. And the proof is that the Tunisian media today is not improving. We should be very careful, because all these rankings and you are the first, you are the third, you have improved, are just slogans to me. In reality, nothing has improved. Things are going backward, and politicians, those who govern today, are stronger and stronger, and a lot of violations to freedom of expression exist in Tunisia, and they happen every day.
Please stay with us. We will be back after the break.
أسواق زمزم الواقع على 24065 أورشاد ليك في مدينة فارمينغتون هيلز ترحب بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. تنزيلات كبيرة على عموم المواد الغذائية في يوم الأربعاء من كل أسبوع. لا تنسوا فريش كاري اوت، جميع انواع المعجنات، وايضا صواني الكمبو المشكله والصمون الحار. لحوم حلال الجاليه العربيه والاسلاميه الملحمه باداره قصاب الجاليه المعروف سلوان جربوع. زوروهم على 24065 أورشاد ليك في مدينه فارمينغتون هيلز او اتصلوا بهم على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمذاق عنوان لجميع طلباتكم، اتصلوا على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمعامله الراقية وكرم الضيافة عنوان.
مسافر وحدك وفايتني.
أمتي ترافل للسياحة والسفر بإدارة نبيل الباشا تعلن عن افتتاح مكتبها الواقع على 28695 راين رود في مدينة وورن. خدمات متميزة وخبرة تفوق 20 عاما نضعها في خدمة عملائنا الكرام. مع أمتي ترافل يمكنكم حجز رحلاتكم الجوية داخل أمريكا، الوطن العربي وأنحاء العالم، إضافة إلى الأماكن السياحية والاستجمام. للحصول على أفضل العروض وأنسب الأسعار ولمزيد من المعلومات اتصلوا على الرقم 586-578-9126 586-578-9126. أمتي ترافل، عنوان للصداقة والثقة. قشات ميديترينيان ماركت بإدارة سهر قشات وأولاده يرحبون بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. جميع أنواع المواد الغذائية، البان طازجة، الكرزات والبهارات الطازجة داخل الأسواق. مطعم ميديترينيان شيش كباب يقدم يوميا جميع أنواع الكباب، المقبلات العربية العراقية وصواني الكامبو المميزة. تفتح الأسواق من 8 إلى 9 مساء من الاثنين وحتى السبت، ومن 8 صباحا إلى 9 مساء يوم الأحد. تقع الأسواق على 32839 نورث ويسترن هايوي في مدينة فارمينغتون هيلز. لحوم حلال للجالية الإسلامية. لطلباتكم من المطعم كول 248-538-7855. That is 248-538-7855. قشة ميديترينيان ماركت، خدمة متميزة ومعاملة راقية.
I am أعطي عبد الجواد. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on Radio Baladi. We are discussing the missing freedoms in the Arab world. We are joined now with Mr. Adib Shweki, who is co-founder of the Rahma Relief Foundation. He is involved with humanitarian work in Syria, war-torn Syria. I know that Dr. Sufyan Maluri would like to comment on what Mr. Murad said a minute ago, but let me first turn to Mr. Shweki. And Mr. Shweki, I want you to tell us, what do you think is the most pressing problem or crisis in Syria right now?
Well, again, I mean, the most thing we should really act and help is the humanitarian situation in Syria, and we'll be waiting for some time now for a ceasefire, actually, which supposedly was declared, but nothing is going on when it comes to the ceasefire. Civilian is being bombed on a daily basis, and the only thing we should really be concerned about and help is how to find safe haven for those Syrian civilians who's be living in camps and living in besieged areas, and with all that, they've been bombed on a daily basis. I mean, again, yesterday, 3 hours ago, our team was trying to deliver some aid inside one of the camps in northern Idlib, and the bombs came right on the camp, killing over 40 men, women, and children living in the camps, trying away to be in a safe area, and they just basically had no consideration for their life, and some of them, 45 of them had lost their lives. Again, those are not military people. Those are basically civilian people. They were living in homes prior to the uprising, and they had to leave it because they lost everything, and they, went to camps, and they got hit by the Russian and the Syrian aircraft while they're, living in camps. Again, I think the most thing should be concerned everybody is how to help these people, how to provide the aid to these people, and thankfully our organization through its network are there to try to help as much as they can, but definitely always needs much more help than what we can provide.
I want to leave the door open for any comments from our distinguished guests on the situation in Syria, but let me turn for a moment to Dr. Sufyan Maluli, who has a comment on what Mr. Murad said a few minutes ago. Go ahead, Dr. Maluli.
Thank you. I was just a comment, a general comment, which is I noticed that Murad, you were a little bit very negative in terms of press freedom in Tunisia. And what I said in my first talk was the fact that freedom, whatever freedom it is, even the freedom of kids regarding their parents, freedom is always negotiated. When I say negotiated, meaning sometimes you get grasp of 70, 80, 90% of freedom, sometimes it gets down. Remember the Patriotic Act after 9/11 in the United States, which a little bit, I would say, controlled media and controlled all the notions of press freedom in the United States. This is one thing. The second thing, regarding the press, and you talked about the fact that the Washington Post, the Times are publishing and still publishing, but let me say that statistics show that all newspapers are just decreasing in terms of publishing, right? So people are moving now to the new age, and this is the big debate, as I said. I wanted just to finish with something. I think we should strike a balance between being totally free and being 100% not free. I think Murad was a little bit reductionist, because I think and I believe that we cannot be today a press which is totally pro-regime and then turn the next morning into a 100% free press. I think there should be some time. We should leave room for training, for the rehabilitation of the press in Tunisia, as much as for the training of journalists. Right? This is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ziad Al-Kilani, back to the situation in Cairo. How do you see the confrontation between the journalists and the Ministry of Interior, the police? How do you think this will be resolved ultimately?
Let me, yesterday evening, there was another statement actually by the journalist syndicate, and they kind of retreated in their position. So after demanding the apology from the president and resignation of the Ministry of Interior, yesterday evening, I was actually at the press syndicate, I would say that, and they were talking about we are open to any kind of peaceful and positive solution. So I think raising the standards the standards of their demands 2 days ago was actually a bad tactic. I wouldn't support that. But at the same time, I guess it's a revealing situation that we need to find a balance between the freedom of press and the executive intervention in controlling the status of journalism in Egypt. Let me finish by saying, commenting on another thing, which is the status of social media in general. And back to the guest from Tunisia. This debate on the professional status of journalism versus social media and the new age. I think it's interesting, but that I wouldn't say that it's actually vested in the Middle East. In the Middle East, we're still in the status of fluidity, or I like the German term, Flüssigkeit. Everything is fluid. We are far away from stability. I wouldn't say that Tunisia is now witnessing a progressive democracy. It's too early to judge. We have been talking about Turkey and the democracy in Turkey, and just yesterday Ahmed Abu Dhabi resigned, and now Erdogan is proposing his son-in-law to be the next prime minister. So I think it's too early to judge the situation in the Middle East. Another thing is the changing nature of social media contributors. So, for instance, on Twitter, back in the days, we had those people who mostly are anti-regime since 2011 or even before that. But during the last 2 days, actually, the most trending hashtags, one of them is "Don't Apologize." That was directed for Sisi. So the pro-regime supporters are actually now contributing on social media. And the other one is like after Sisi. And this reflects the anti-regime supporters. So I think we need to study more the dynamics of social media and this kind of detachment between social media and reality. Not only in Egypt, I think, but I think it's getting more popular across the Middle East.
Mr. Adib Shweki, are there independent newspapers in Syria, or is everything government controlled?
Well, inside Syria, obviously everything is government. There's nothing called independent over there. It's like the government controlling the voice and the eyes and the ear of everybody. So definitely we have no independent journalists can allowed to be in either. So whatever you see from the government media, whether the TV or the newspaper, it's the regime point of view of the situation.
So that's why the Syrian people and in turns the rest of the Arab world basically get a one-sided story about what's going on in Syria.
Well, that's one thing. You know, the only thing we can really rely on is some of the journalists in the areas with affected areas, and sometimes some really major TV stations, even U.S. stations, some CNN, for instance, sometimes they do make live interviews. But again, those are the people who can really give you the real situation. And as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't need two people to argue. Is whatever is being going on now, especially after the ceasefire, what they call ceasefire. I mean, people are being bombed from the air, and the resistance doesn't have air force. They don't have planes. So now we're to talk about journalism, and even in the Arab world, journalism. I don't think they've been covering giving the proper coverage for the humanitarian situation in Syria and for the role of the regime. I understand sometimes they say, well, there's some, the opposition is being throwing some, missiles or bombs or whatever on the regime-controlled area, but there's no comparison whatsoever. Those people are defending themselves, defending their families, but you got a major Air Force, Russian Air Force.
Adib Shweki, thank you very much. I also would like to thank all our distinguished guests from Cairo and from Tunisia. And I will see you the first Friday of next month. Goodbye.
The views expressed on the preceding